You're listening to The Stephen Torriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Stephen Torriello Show. And now, here's Stephen.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. And we have a whole lot to get into. Big day today in Manhattan, New York, on several instances. First of all, we had the Donald Trump trial, the sham, Soviet Union Stalinist trial in Manhattan, New York, where Alvin Bragg has essentially bootstrapped some laws together and has managed to get Donald Trump in court in a criminal trial like we're living in the Soviet Union back in the 1930s. So we're dealing with the show trial in New York. And then on top of that, you had Palestinian and Hamas protesters. And I have some audio from Laura Loomer, who was down there today. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to say, this Palestinian movement that's spreading across the country like a cancer is extremely bizarre. All right? I feel like New York City is turning into a Middle Eastern country where you have American citizens flying Hezbollah flags, flying Hamas flags, saying death to America. I mean, what the hell is going on here? And so this is turning out to be quite the concern, and it should be a concern for all Christians in this country, because it seems like, and I know we've said this before, we're in a religious war here, folks. The war on faith, the war on religion is here, and Christians in this country better wake up. But I'm pretty sure that we said there was going to be some type of major protest or major movement months before the election. This is going to be essentially the BLM movement of 2020. That's what this is going to be. And so they're going to use this movement to their advantage, because Democrats never let a crisis go to waste. And having American citizens protest America, chanting death to America and death to Israel while wearing a hijab and a kafefi, or whatever you want to call it, we're going to figure out the name for that, while flying Hezbollah flags and Hamas flags, is quite the crisis, if I don't say so myself. So a whole lot of stuff has happened in New York today, and so we're going to get through all of that. I want to go over the 4 key moments of the trial of Donald Trump today, the show trial, and I absolutely refuse to call this the hush money case. This is not a hush money case. This is an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and I was actually having a conversation with a fellow listener of the show today, and they called this the hush money case, and I urged them to, we got to stop calling it the hush money case. This is not a hush money case. Once again, Democrats have managed to twist the language. Like I said, and we say it on the show all the time, Democrats own the language. They are so good at this. And what they did was, from the very beginning of this, on the very onset, they called this the hush money case. Why? Because hush money sounds worse than a non-disclosure agreement case, because that's essentially what this is. So Republicans, my fellow content creators and podcasters and radio hosts, my conservative, God-fearing, America-loving patriots out there, my fellow Americans, we must start calling this an NDA case. I know it doesn't sound as good and it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well, but we got to stop calling this the hush money case, because it's not a hush money case, and this is how Democrats own the language. This is how they twist it, and then now all the media is calling this hush money, which makes it sound nefarious. And they do it for a reason. They're very good, folks. Very good. Democrats may be evil. They may be a bunch of lunatics, but they are very smart and very cunning when it comes to owning the language. And in fact, most fascistic regimes are. And that is certainly what we are walking into in the next coming years if we don't change course in this country. And that is not a joke. I am completely 100% convinced we are walking into totalitarianism or authoritarianism or straight up fascism, which all leads to communism if we do not change the direction this country is going in. So first of all, I want to start out with this article from the New York Post. It says Trump's hush money, again, conservative media, we on this side need to know better than to repeat the headlines that Democrats create. The leftist media, the Pravda media, we are repeating Pravda headlines when we say hush money. Anyways, Trump's NDA New York City trial. Donald Trump appeared inside Manhattan criminal court on Monday as the first criminal trial against him began with jury selection. No jurors were selected from the dozens screened. It marked the first time a former president has gone to trial over criminal charges, which stem from six-figure hush money payments the ex-president allegedly made to former porn star Stormy Daniels and Playboy playmate Karen McDougal ahead of the 2016 election. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts, folks, 34. Not one or two or three, but 34. Why? Because this is throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and hoping they just get one. That is all they need to officially change Donald Trump's name going into the campaign from Donald Trump to convicted felon Donald Trump. That is what they're trying to do. They're using this legal system as a means of swaying an election in order to build headlines in order to influence the election. That's what this is. That's what we're watching in America. We're watching the utilization and the weaponization of our justice system in order to sway elections. Yes, Democrats have officially turned this country into a third world banana republic. We got bridges collapsing, we got infrastructure collapsing, a collapsing economy, a government that is dysfunctional. The whole thing is collapsing around us. And Democrats are in a hurry. Not only are they in a hurry, but they are begging their fellow Americans to vote for 4 more years of it. As long as I live, never be able to make sense of why anybody would want to vote for their own destruction, unless it's a mass mental illness, which I totally think it is. Anyways, Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in an effort to cover up the payments to keep Daniels and McDougal quiet about alleged affairs the women say they had with him. The trial is expected to last about 2 months, and Trump faces up to 4 years in prison if convicted. Because it's a criminal trial, the former commander-in-chief must show up at court every day that it's in session. So this is insane that we're even having to go through this. I feel like we are in Stalin's Russia right now, because this is what Putin does to his political opposition. You've seen his political opposition just get assassinated, 3 months ago? And this is what banana republics do. This is what corrupt authoritarian regimes, this is what they do, is what we're watching. So slow clap for the Democratic Party for turning our country into a banana republic. All right, so no jurors were selected on day one of Donald Trump's Manhattan NDA case, but the day was still action-packed. In case you missed it, here are a few highlights. So it emerged that Trump may have to skip his son Barron's high school graduation ceremony next month because of the trial. His lawyers asked the judge not to hold the trial on Friday, May 17th, so the ex-president can attend the graduation in Florida. The judge did not immediately rule. I don't know why anybody would think the judge is going to show any mercy in this case. It is clear and obvious that he is a partisan judge. This has been politicized. This is not justice. This is a show trial. So I don't know why anybody would expect this judge to give Donald Trump the day to go watch his son graduate. I just don't see it happening. And in fact, this is going to go exactly how you can expect it. Donald Trump is going to be convicted. There's not going to be any justice here, folks. This is because this is all designed by Democrats and Joe Biden in the White House. This is their plan for winning the 2024 election. That's what this is. And so we're going to have to just go through the motions. There's not going to be any acquittal. There's going to be nothing that goes in Trump's favor because this is already predestined. All right? This is already predetermined justice, which isn't justice at all. And if you've heard the questions that the jurors are going to be asked in order that the jurors are being asked right now to determine whether they have a bias or not, the whole thing, folks, is a sham. It is a means of winning an election, interfering in a federal election. And you guys know how I feel about that. I think every single one of these people that were involved in this strategy to interfere in the people's election should be charged and indicted for conspiracy to violate people's voting rights by weaponizing the justice system in order to interfere in a federal election. That's what I feel. That's how I feel about the matter, and I think that exact thing must happen. Because if you don't, then these people are going to continue trying to sway elections, whether it's Trump, whether it's DeSantis, it's not going to stop. They have crossed the Rubicon over and over again. And Republicans are sitting here saying, when are they going to stop? There's no way they can do that. Ladies and gentlemen, they are going to do some, and I told everybody this, I said this from day one, you're going to see some of the craziest stuff you've ever seen, because the closer we get to the election, the more desperate these people are going to get. And so there is absolutely nothing that these people will not do to win this election, to see Donald Trump in prison, to throw him in jail. To what they would really like is for him to hang. They would like to hang him from a telephone pole in the streets of New York City by the mob. This is what they want to do. We've seen this throughout history, multiple times, all throughout history, when the rise of authoritarianism or fascism, the mob, you see mob rule. The mob is the justice system. And it's almost kind of like the Salem witch trials, where they will just steamroll, they will convince themselves and justify every single evil thing that they're doing on this guise of saving democracy while they're actively destroying democracy. Pretty much what I'm saying is they're not going to allow Donald Trump to go to his son's graduation because they're just not going to do it, because that would be a nice thing to do for Donald Trump, and there's nothing nice about this. These people are in 100% control. This is a judge that is clearly a partisan biased judge that is not impartial. In fact, knows what he's doing and knows he's impartial, but he knows he has to do the bidding for Joe Biden because he donated money to Joe Biden back in 2020. And so it's clear and obvious that this judge is on a mission, and that mission is to get Donald Trump. So Donald Trump will not be able to go to his son's graduation. That's one key point, but we'll see. I highly doubt it. They may throw him a bone just to make it appear as if he's being impartial and being fair. Nothing about this trial is going to be fair, and Democrats are going to love every bit of it. So just buckle up, folks. It's going to be a rough one. So the next highlight of today, Melania Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and former top Trump aides Hope Hicks and Kellyanne Conway are among the names jurors will hear during the trial, the judge said. Prosecutor Joshua Steinglass recited Trump's infamous Access Hollywood hot mic moment Monday morning, saying Trump's grab him by the pee speech, word for word. The judge ruled that the tape could not be played for jurors, but testimony about the tape will be allowed in. You see, this is not, like I said, this is nothing but a smear campaign. This is like, and in fact, you have to wonder, is this judge and these prosecutors, is this an in-kind donation to Joe Biden's campaign? I think some people could consider that. So imagine that. So Michael Cohen paid off Stormy Daniels with his own money, and he said it was under the direction of Donald Trump. But we know Michael Cohen is a proven and convicted liar, perjurer. He has been convicted for perjury, and so this is their star witness. But essentially what Alvin Bragg is saying, and this is just what people have put together so far, nobody really knows what the crime is here because Alvin Bragg has kind of been evading that answer, which is kind of crazy to me. One would think if Democrats are going to destroy this country and the justice system and turn this place into a banana republic, it would at least be for a crime that everybody can clearly see. But that's not what we have here. And in fact, it's the exact opposite. This is a crime that nobody can see. Okay, this is a crime that's been passed up by prosecutors, federal prosecutors, the Elections Commission, like all these places passed up, all these institutions passed up on this case because it's not a crime, it's not a case. But yet, here we are. Joe Biden sends his best, which is what's his name? We're going to get into him. I think we talked about him on the last show. So that's what they're essentially saying. Donald Trump, this was a campaign. Let me see if I can break this down in an easier, simple way to kind of summarize all of this that's happening. They're accusing Donald Trump of paying off Stormy Daniels. And by doing that, would be a campaign finance, right? Because what they're accusing him of doing is you paid off Stormy Daniels to make yourself look better to run for president. And so because of that, you should have filed this under a campaign finance and not a business finance. And so that's what they're going after him for, a bookkeeping misdemeanor. And they're bootstrapping it and turning it into a federal crime because it was for a federal election. How a state prosecutor can litigate a federal case is beyond me. This is what I'm saying. None of this makes sense. This is the most bogus and bizarre. This is the most bogus and bizarre case anybody's ever seen. But again, this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the exception to everything. He does not get constitutional rights. He does not get any rights, no due process, no freedom of speech. Donald Trump gets nothing. All right? This is how they treat Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the exception to everything. So in a normal world, this case would never be brought. But because it's Donald Trump and they have to get Joe Biden across the finish line and win an election, then damn the torpedoes, we're bringing the whole thing down to stop Donald Trump from getting elected. And that's really what this is about. And so the same thing they are accusing Donald Trump of doing, they're actually doing by interfering in the election and creating essentially a campaign commercial for Joe Biden. This judge and these prosecutors, Alvin Bragg, to me, that seems like a campaign donation, does it not, for Joe Biden? Is this not some sort of campaign donation? This is like an op-ed for Joe Biden, a very, very expensive taxpayer-funded op-ed for Joe Biden. And so to me, it seems like it would be a campaign donation, an in-kind donation for Joe Biden by running Donald Trump through the ringer, putting him in the press, in the media 24/7, trying to destroy his character. This is essentially Joe Biden's strategy for winning the election, is by running Donald Trump through the ringer with this case, using the justice system. And so to me, that seems like a campaign donation. So just like everything else, everything they accuse their opponents of doing, they themselves are actually doing, which is the prime example of fascism. This is what fascists and dictators do. Everything that they accuse their opponents of doing, they're actually guilty of. They're the ones actually donating to Joe Biden's campaign. So, all right, anyways, moving on. The DA's office urged Merchant to fine Trump $3,000 for violating the court's gag order by disparaging likely witnesses Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels in social media posts. Judge Merchant set a hearing in the matter for next week, so I'm sure the judge is going to charge Donald Trump $3,000. This gag order is so freaking, authoritarian, man. So in other words, what they're saying is Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, the media, Joe Biden, everybody can talk about Donald Trump, right? But Donald Trump can't defend himself. That's essentially what they're trying to do with this gag order, because they know it's all BS, and that if Donald Trump is out there on the stump telling people the truth about all this, we've never seen anything like this in this country, folks. This is the most Stalinist, Soviet Union-like stuff we've ever seen in this country. I mean, it's so shocking. It really is. I mean, I sometimes I get flabbergasted. I don't really know what to say. I mean, because we've never been to this point. Like When you're sitting in history class and they're teaching you about, Adolf Hitler and the rise of fascism and the rise of totalitarianism, when we're learning all this stuff in history, you say to yourself, well, that'll never happen here, so I don't even have to worry about it. And sometimes I can't believe the words that are coming out of my mouth that it's here in this country in just 3 years. In 3 years, the Democrats have managed to turn this country into a banana republic, all in the name of stopping one man. This is what's so bizarre to me, and this is exactly how history is going to remember this. And all these people will be judged very harshly. But the thing is history is written by the victors. We all know this. And so if Donald Trump wins, right, then the history will be reported accurately. If Donald Trump loses, the Democrats get to write the history. Throughout history, when this has happened, because it's always happened when you see the rise of totalitarianism and fascism and all that, you always see the victors, you always see the changing of history, right? The history is not reported accurately. But but there was never social media back then. Now we have social media. We have conservative radio hosts, conservative podcasters, conservative content creators and YouTubers. So the social media aspect of this makes this new in terms of recording the history behind all this. When you have shows like this and all the other shows out there that are talking about this stuff, then people are forever going to be able to go back. Well, depends. I mean, if we turn into straight fascism, they're probably going to delete all the servers and none of this would have ever happened. They'll try and delete this entire 10 years out of U.S. history. That's the road I think this country's going down. We're going down something very weird, very dangerous. We are past the Rubicon now. The Rubicon is in our rearview mirror, right? We are down the slippery slope, over the edge, whatever you want to call it. We are there. When you have a judge putting a gag order on a former president who is facing criminal charges for bookkeeping charges, right? For bookkeeping, finance, campaign stuff. The current frontrunner, the candidate for president of the United States, Joe Biden's chief political rival, puts a gag order on this person. We are beyond entering the realm of fascism and totalitarianism. It's here already. A year ago, 2 years ago, I questioned this. I said, are we here? I asked myself, are we there? Have we lost the country and we're trying to get it back? Or are we losing the country and we're trying to keep it? But ladies and gentlemen, I am a firm believer, and nobody can convince me otherwise, that we have lost the country. When you can have a judge in New York City, a radical partisan Democrat judge in a Democrat city with Democrat prosecutors, Democrat juries, when you can have a gag order put on Joe Biden's chief political rival, when you can have the weaponization and the persecution of political dissenters and opposition and political opposition, we have entered the realm of totalitarianism or authoritarianism. Whatever you want to call it. It's not going to be like what we've read in the history books. It's going to look very different because countries like this aren't supposed to enter fascism. Constitutional republics are not supposed to be entering realms of fascism and dictatorships and authoritarianism and totalitarianism like this. That is why we have a constitution. This is why people have due process and freedom of speech in the Second Amendment, the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, Eighth Amendment. This is why we have all these things. And so for a judge to put a gag order on a criminal defendant, and he's not allowed to talk or defend himself, but all the other people can bash on him and say whatever they want about him, we are entering the realm of post-constitutionalism. That's what we are. We are in a world right now where there is no constitution. People have no rights. Donald Trump has no rights. He has no rights to a fair trial. He has no rights to due process. He has no rights to his First Amendment. He has no rights to an impartial judge. He has no rights to a jury of his peers. He has none of these. They have stripped all of that away from Donald Trump. And if people think it's going to stop with Donald Trump, they're sadly mistaken. This is the big mistake Democrats are making. They think this is just going to stop with Donald Trump, and that as long as we get rid of Donald Trump, then it's all worth it, right? This is their justification for it. This is how they feel. Trust me, I know this. Democrats don't care what they have to do in order to stop Donald Trump. Their biggest mistake they're making is they think it's going to stop after Donald Trump. So what they're saying is we got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and then after Donald Trump's gone, everything will go back to normal. But they are wrong. They are sadly mistaken. This is taking this country into a very, very dark world that nobody wants to experience, not even them. Because this is how it's always been in the past. History has showed us this. History has showed us the lessons of exactly what Democrats are doing over and over and over again. And what do you know? These people, they don't know history. They just don't. And unfortunately, they're willing to break the whole system in order to get rid of Donald Trump. This is, and I said this earlier, what we're witnessing right now is cutting off your own nose to spite your face is the phrase of the century. These people, they are willing to destroy the whole damn system, the justice system, the constitutional republic, democracy itself, for the so-called defenders of democracy, all in the name of stopping Donald Trump. And their biggest mistake is they think it's going to stop after Donald Trump, but it is not. This is exactly why when Donald Trump wins, these people, there must be retribution. There must be. There has to be at some point. I'm not saying that all of political opponents need to pay. What I'm saying is anybody that was involved in the strategy to interfere in the people's election needs to be held accountable, or this will not stop. Because after Donald Trump and it's Ron DeSantis, they're going to do it to him. This is what happens. This is like what the framers of this country feared the most. They feared political parties like the Democrats, right? They feared a political party that was going to make it so scary to run for presidency, to run for office, that they won't have any opposition. You essentially are going to have a one-party state, which is exactly what the framers did not want. This is why they wanted separation of powers. They went through great lengths to try to make sure that the power was divided up equally. But you have a political party that has created this weird Frankenstein fourth branch of government. And now this, what we call a bureaucracy, deep state, the establishment, the swamp, whatever you want to call it, this thing is running the country now. This thing runs the justice system. This thing runs the media. This thing runs the military-industrial complex, the executive branch, Congress. It runs everything, right? And so this is exactly what the framers feared. And it's all being done by the Democratic Party. And so what you're going to have in about 10 to 20 years is Democrats are going to go from justifying this to get rid of Trump, from justifying it to get rid of anybody. No matter what the political opposition is. And this, in turn, will keep people from running for office. People won't want to run for office if they think they're going to be imprisoned by Democrats. All right? This is insane. Donald Trump did nothing wrong. He ran for president, beat Hillary Clinton, and they could not accept the results. And so it's been this jihad against Donald Trump ever since. And so now they're using all this anger and emotion to justify steamrolling all of our institutions in the name of stopping Donald Trump. And it's not going to stop with Donald Trump. It's going to go on because when it's Ron DeSantis, they're going to be like, oh my God, Ron DeSantis was friends with Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis is too much like Donald Trump. We got to make sure, bring out the playbook we used for Donald Trump. This is going to be called the Trump playbook whenever Democrats want to destroy an opponent. They're going to use all these institutions, the same strategy, the weaponization of the justice system, the weaponization of the intel agencies. They're going to do this for every single political opponent that they don't like. But if they like the political opponent, then they'll maybe let them slide, like a Bush or something like that, or a Cheney. Essentially, what you would have is controlled opposition and, in turn, a one-party state. That's what we're dealing with. Man, that was way longer than I thought. Anyway, so this is what's happening today. That's what happened in the New York City trial case in Manhattan. A complete show trial. Absolutely just, frankly, it's disgusting. It's disgusting that the Democrats would allow the complete bastardization of our justice system like this in the name of defeating a political opponent, in the name of getting Joe Biden elected. Why Joe Biden? This is what I don't get. Like, these people are willing to destroy the whole country and all of its institutions in the name of getting this corrupt, decrepit, old, senile politician across the finish line as president? So that what? The American people have to suffer for another 4 years? Think about that, folks. They want another 4 years. They want to repeat all the pain and misery, death and destruction that the world has encountered because of Joe Biden's 4 years in office. They want a repeat of this. This is what's crazy to me. This is, it's insanity. This, to me, is the definition of insanity, is knowingly voting for your own destruction. Because that's what we're watching. Like, we're watching people. I never understood this. You're going to vote for this again? Like, you can't bring in an RFK at least? You can't bring in another candidate? You got to bring this guy in? They're going to destroy all this for Joe Biden? Man, dude, Democrats got some serious issues. They really do. And don't get it twisted. You will have millions upon millions of people running out to the voting booths to pull that lever for Joe Biden. And they won't be pulling the lever because they like Joe Biden or because he did a good job. None of that. Of course, that's what they'll say to justify them doing it. But they're doing it all in the name of stopping Donald Trump. Again, this goes all full circle. Everybody has been completely subdued by this Trump derangement syndrome, this mental disorder. And this mental disorder is causing people to act out irrationally, act out unreasonably. Like, there is no guiding principle in the Democrats right now. Everything is being ran by this mental disorder. It is like what was that movie? The Body Snatchers. Like, this is like this mental disorder has completely infected millions of people to where they would go to the voting booth and vote for their own destruction. This is what we're watching. Because I'm telling you right now, that there's no reasonable explanation why you can witness and experience it firsthand, the death and destruction and the pain and misery that comes with the Biden administration. To where there's nothing to explain why you would knowingly vote for that again. It doesn't make sense. And so they'll say things like, oh, Joe Biden, this is actually Trump's policies. Like, that's a big excuse, a big justification that comes from the left is, oh, well, this is actually what we're experiencing now from Joe Biden is actually Donald Trump. And that all of Donald Trump's term was actually Barack Obama. This is what they say. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what they say. This is how these people really feel. I've heard it 1,000 times. Except for when it comes to George W. Bush. And so when they said Barack Obama had a great term, are we saying that's actually Bush's term? You know, it's this 4-year lag that Democrats like to use. And I try and explain to them there is no such thing as a 4-year lag on a presidential administration. Because there's these things called executive orders, executive actions, executive memorandums. Like, there's all these things that Joe Biden did his first 100 days in office. We see this all the time. It's like the first 100 days in office. Every single leftist Pravda media outlet will talk about the successes of Joe Biden's first 100 days or Donald Trump's first 100 days. And so that's what we're experiencing. What the American people are experiencing right now is Joe Biden's first 100 days in office. all the executive orders, all the executive actions that he's taken, opening the southern border, canceling all of Donald Trump's border policies. So this is not Donald Trump's administration right now. I don't know how these people, again, the mental gymnastics one must perform to think that this is actually Donald Trump's policies. The 4-year lag, like as if there's a 4-year lag in presidential administrations, even though Joe Biden's been signing executive orders since day one. No, what we're experiencing right now is 100% Joe Biden's policies. This is his foreign policies. This is his weakness on foreign policy. This is Joe Biden's disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. And so they're trying to justify all this insanity so that they don't look crazy. These people don't want to look crazy. They don't want to be crazy. And so they know voting for Joe Biden's a very, very bad idea. But they use this mental gymnastics. They use this mental disorder in order to justify it. Like, oh, this is all a 4-year lag of Donald Trump. And so Joe Biden's next term is actually going to be his real term. It's like, okay, all right, so all the executive orders, that doesn't do anything. The canceling of the border policies, the Keystone Pipeline, the Iran nuclear deal, all of that Joe Biden did his first 100 days in office, none of that has affected us yet. That's essentially what they say. And so look, I'm trying to explain to my listeners that this is how these people think. All right? I know this because I talk to them a lot. I used to be a Democrat. Never this crazy, though. I was like an RFK Jr. Democrat. Granted, I'll never vote for a Democrat again as long as I live. And I will almost swear that on a Bible. There's no way. There's no way I'll ever go back to the Democratic Party. And if it wasn't for Donald Trump, I wouldn't be voting for Republicans either. But the way I see all of this right now is if you take Joe Biden and Donald Trump, if you were to you just put them both on the same level, take all the animosity you have towards both of them, if they were just regular people and you based your current situation off of policies alone, strictly off the policies, strictly off of the track record, Donald Trump blows Joe Biden out of the water in terms of peace and prosperity. That's it. That's it. If you take all the emotions out of this election and you go into that voting booth and you say, all right, which one made my life better for 4 years? And that's essentially what this election is going to be about. Now, Democrats don't want people to think of it that way because if they did that, then obviously the choice is obvious. Everybody would be voting for Donald Trump. And so they have to inject all these emotions. They have to try and infect other people with Trump derangement syndrome. And one of the ways they do that is with cases like this, by bringing up show trials, getting people really amped up on emotions. This is why they used the abortion tactic during every election. So, in other words, in some states, our presidential elections are essentially determined by if women can get abortions or not. This is what they do. Democrats are very good at this. They won't run on their record. They won't run on their policies. They won't run on their ideas. They run purely off emotions. Now, if both sides, Republicans and Democrats, were to just take the emotions out of it and vote solely off of policy and track record, the differences couldn't be more stark. It's a no-brainer. How I look at it is a vote for Joe Biden, you're going to get this what you've got the last 3.5 years. All right? There's no 4-year lag, none of that garbage, excuse, insanity. You vote for Donald Trump, you're going to get the 4 years, well, technically 3, because the last year with COVID, that doesn't really count, because that was a freaking disaster. But I will say, across all metrics, the coming out of the COVID under Donald Trump, we were going to skyrocket. And then Joe Biden got elected, and the whole freaking bottom just dropped out. And so you can see this on charts. You can see this on bar graphs. You can see the economy starting to go up, up, and up. Joe Biden gets in the office, starts signing everything they put under his schnoz, and the whole thing just drops out. And so we were already recovering at a phenomenal rate before Joe Biden got elected. All right? So if you take Donald Trump's policies for 3 years, take the 3 years you had with Donald Trump, it is a no-brainer. if you were to get rid of the emotions, get rid of all the drama that's going to come with them, the Democrats' impeachment and the congressional investigations, the American people, the country as a whole, and I'm not talking about just Democrats or Republicans, every single American in this country, it's going to be a net positive, all right? The influence Donald Trump will have on Americans' lives and on this country will be a net positive. Joe Biden will be a net negative, all right? Because we know this. Joe Biden has been a net negative. That's not getting any better. There's no signs of any change. In fact, he's doubling down on all this insanity. And with Donald Trump, you're going to get, believe it or not, normalcy, peace, and prosperity, which is what normal Americans want, all right? Insane Americans would vote for the continuation of their own destruction. Sane, rational Americans would vote for peace and prosperity for all Americans. That's it. It's as simple as that. All right, so I just spent 45 minutes talking about nonsense. I want to get into what was happening in New York today. Not just the Donald Trump case, but something very, very shocking. Shocking doesn't really do it for me. What I can say, and I'll say this right here, right now, Christians in this country, Catholics in this country, let me put it this way. If you believe in God, right? If you are a God-fearing person in this country, what is happening with this Palestinian movement that is spreading through our country like a cancer should terrify you. We are witnessing some like Middle Eastern protesting that looks like it's going to start turning into little micro terrorist attacks on this country. You have American citizens, most likely Biden voters, flying Hamas flags, flying Hezbollah flags in New York City. This movement, this Palestinian pro-Hamas movement, is getting out of control. And it should be terrifying because the goal for these people is to what? To destroy America, to destroy Israel, and to destroy Christianity, right? That's why they want to destroy Israel, because of their faith, all right? This is why they chant death to Israel. These people are now chanting death to America in America. It's one thing when they're saying it overseas, across an ocean, in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. But now you have these people flying Hezbollah flags, flying Hamas flags, chanting death to America in New York City. And so the Donald Trump show trial wasn't the only crazy thing happening in New York City. And, you know, the one person that's been on this from day one, the one person that's really been on this, especially today, has been Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer has been on fire when it comes to the show trials of Donald Trump, this jihad against Donald Trump, and these protesters, this Palestinian pro-Hamas protesters that's spreading like a cancer across the country. And so she was in New York, she was in Manhattan all day today, getting some pretty stellar footage, right? And I want my listeners to hear this footage. And so I'm going to go through some posts that Laura Loomer posted today on Twitter, or X. God, I hate that. And I want you to hear what these protesters are saying in the streets of New York, these pro-Hamas protesters. We're going to go through a few different videos, and I just want my listeners to hear what is being said by what looks like mini terrorist group to me, and we're going to go through that in just a second about Hezbollah and Hamas terrorist organizations. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and play some videos. I'm going to try and bleep the cuss words out as much as I can. But obviously it's a protest. I'm not going to be able to get all of them. So if you hear cursing, I apologize. I'm allowed to curse on this show. It is a podcast. We're not radio syndicated. I just choose not to because I think cursing, I think it degrades the content when you have somebody on here cussing all the time. So that's why I choose not to cuss on my show. I think I can get what I need to say out without cursing. Because trust me, I curse like a sailor, and anybody you talk to that knows me knows that I curse like a sailor. But I don't want to do that talking to you. I think it's disrespectful, especially if you have kids in the car. And number two, I just think it creates low IQ content. So anyways, all right, so let's get into some of these videos. All right, let's listen to this. Laura Loomer, Jewish journalists warned by mob of Palestinian activists waving Hezbollah flags as they hurl abuse at her for reporting on their protests. Hezbollah is designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. government.
Yes, I do.
Donald Trump is anti-Semitic.
Don't put the Hezbollah flag on me.
A Hezbollah flag, folks.
Why are you supporting this? This is terrorism.
Or the other side.
She is supporting Hezbollah. How come you guys don't have counterterrorism out here? That is a terrorist flag. That is a terrorist flag.
I feel sorry for these policemen.
Do I support Hamas? Hell no. I don't support Hamas.
This is crazy, folks.
Get more surgery than kill yourself.
Yeah, maybe you need
more surgery. More Botox.
Once you get a little bit
More surgery. Put more Botox in the ass. Get a BBL, bitch. Bitch, you need a BBL. You need surgery. You look scared.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm not moving. I don't need to move.
Your
No.
eyelashes are up.
I don't give a
Surgery.
You fucked up. You're supporting a terrorist organization.
Hamas. I love Hezbollah.
You're supporting a Hezbollah.
What's that shit? You're on my side, bitch.
Israel is a
You're on my
terrorist
side.
state.
This is America.
Okay, so I'm gonna stand right here, bitch.
Like it's America,
Yeah,
right?
it does. Don't tell me to fucking
Israel is a terrorist
You
state.
support Zionism, you support terrorism.
You're supporting.
You support Zionism, you support terrorism. This is targeting Christianity, folks. These people hate you if you believe in God, if you are a Christian, if you are a Catholic. This is terrifying to see this type of protest and this type of movement in this country. But don't for a second think that Democrats are not going to use this to their advantage. They are very good at hijacking movements and using them for political purposes. We've seen this during BLM, during the 2020. Guys, remember the so-called riots of love or the summer of love where BLM protesters and Antifa stormed cities all across the country, burnt buildings down, took over courthouses, tried to burn down police precincts. The Chaz zone in, I think it was, where was the Chaz zone? Pretty much an insurrection is what it was. It was a bunch of little insurrections all across the country. And nobody really was arrested. We don't hear any of them being hunted down by the FBI and our intel agencies and the Biden DOJ. No. They were allowed to do $44 billion worth of damage. I think over 100 people were killed. And we're supposed to just say, okay, that's, it was all in the name of social justice. Now, in 2024, we have anti-Christian, anti-Israel protests, a pro-Hamas movement. I know you can't see it. This is audio only. These people were flying Hezbollah flags, flying Hamas flags. Yes, Hamas has a flag. And you have protesters flying these flags in New York City saying death to America. And I'm going to let you listen to that right here. Check this out.
Hezbollah. You're supporting Hezbollah. You're supporting Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization. You're supporting Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization.
And what the fuck is Israel? And what the fuck is Israel? Trash.
Israel will crumble and
Trash.
fall.
She likes dead
Israel will
babies.
crumble and fall.
You have kids?
I don't have kids, no.
You shouldn't have kids. You shouldn't have kids. Yeah. You shouldn't be
waving.
children.
You shouldn't be waving the Hezbollah flag. What does that have anything to do with
These people
anything?
hate kids, by the way.
Let's get your kids. You want to get your kids blown up? You support people being starved?
I don't support Hezbollah.
I love Hezbollah.
Don't get away.
I love Hezbollah.
Yo, are you her bodyguard? Kids up.
Why are you putting your hands on me? Like, why are you touching me? This is crazy. Like, why are they supporting Hezbollah? This is fucked up. This is fucked up. This is a fucking terrorist organization.
Get the fuck out of here.
It is a terrorist organization.
Get the fuck out of here. Go get out. Go get out. Go get out. If America's a terrorist.
I believe that it's Patriots Day. I support January 6th. All the political prisoners need to be removed from jail. I support full pardons for all of them. They're patriots.
Still out here okay?
The cop wants us to know.
All right, guys. Go this
Like, these people are crazy.
Yeah, this is insane. I'm gonna try and find where is the video. This is crazy, man.
Why are you waving a Hezbollah flag? Excuse me, why are you waving a Hezbollah flag? Hezbollah's a terrorist organization. That's a terrorist organization. Oh, really? Do you support Hezbollah? Yes, I do.
Donald Trump is anti-Semitic.
Don't put the Hezbollah flag on.
No, Donald Trump is anti-Semitic. Look at him. They say
Why
Donald
are you
Trump did
supporting
nothing
this?
wrong.
This is terrorism.
Donald Trump.
Flag.
Do you command Hamas? Respect each other's space.
Do
Do you command Hamas? We go over there. We go over there. You should command Hamas.
Put makeup on, then kill yourself. Get more surgery.
We're working in the middle of New York City, and they're allowing for people to wave Hezbollah flags.
All I can say, folks, is this is the America Democrats want for you. And all people of faith in this country, wake up. Wake up. This is insane, man. You have hundreds of people flying Hamas flags, flying Hezbollah flags. And I'm going to read this to you. I did some digging. It's not hard to find. You can find this right on U.S. government website. Hezbollah is designated as a terrorist organization by several countries and international organizations. The United States first designated Hezbollah's external security organization as a terrorist entity in 1997 and expanded the designation in 2001 to include the entire organization. Additionally, countries such as Canada, the UK, Germany, and the Arab League also recognize Hezbollah or its military wing as a terrorist organization. These designations are largely based on Hezbollah's involvement in various terrorist attacks, kidnappings, and military operations against Israel, as well as its activities in other parts of the world. Hamas is designated as a terrorist organization by several countries, including the United States, Canada, Europe, the European Union, and others. The designation is based on Hamas's involvement in suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and other violent acts primarily directed against Israeli civilian and military targets. And the Houthis, also known as Ansar Allah, as a terrorist organization, has varied and has been subject to political changes. In January 2021, the U.S. State Department designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. However, this designation was revoked by the Biden administration shortly after taking office in February 2021. The revocation was part of a broader diplomatic effort to address the humanitarian crisis and support peace talks in Yemen. Yeah. So the Biden administration removed the terrorist designation from the Houthis. All this is the Biden administration's appeasement strategy in the Iran nuclear deal, and something I explained to my buddy earlier today, a good friend of mine who's not really into politics but is concerned for this country. He's a veteran, and he wanted to know a summary of what was happening and why all this stuff is happening in the Middle East, and it is all 100% to blame on Joe Biden. We were not dealing with this stuff when Donald Trump was president, and that is for a reason. Is because countries respected us, unlike Biden, and our enemies feared us, unlike Biden. And this is a will versus capacity issue. These terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas, they have the will to want to conduct acts of terrorism and destroy America and destroy Israel, but Donald Trump removed their capacity. The capacity required by these people to carry out acts of terrorism against their enemies is money. And what Joe Biden did his first 100 days in office, all right, what Joe Biden did was they wanted to get back into Obama's Iran nuclear deal. And so they started this appeasement strategy to Iran, releasing hundreds of billions of dollars to Iran, which gave them the capacity to carry out all the carnage and devastation and chaos you see today. So it is because of Joe Biden's disastrous foreign policy, Barack Obama's disastrous Iran nuclear deal, and Joe Biden giving Iran billions of dollars, which is Iran is the number one state sponsor for terrorism, who then funnels all this money down into their little terrorist wings like Hezbollah and Hamas and so on and so forth. And so all of this is because Joe Biden gave Iran, gave Hezbollah, gave Hamas the capacity to create all this chaos and mayhem. And he very well may be responsible for putting us on the brink of World War III. After the attacks on Israel, after the retaliatory strike on Iran, and Israel trying to eradicate Hamas so they don't have to go through another October 7th. But the Biden administration is undermining Israel every chance it can get, which would be the first time in this country's history where a presidential administration is actively undermining one of our biggest allies in the Middle East. All of this, folks, all of this is caused by Joe Biden. There's a reason why we weren't dealing with this stuff during Donald Trump. It was because they may not have liked Donald Trump, but we don't want countries to like us. All right? They pretend like they like Joe Biden. They laugh with them and, do the old belly laugh with one another, pat each other on the back and congratulate one another. But they don't respect him. And our enemies sure in the hell don't fear us, and that is obvious. But what I want to stress to my listeners, and you need to stress and share the show with your friends and family, is we have active protests in this country, in New York City, waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags. These are designated terrorist organizations, right? Designated terrorist organizations that were designated by the United States and multiple other countries of being terrorist organizations. And you have Americans waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags. So this is an attack on Christianity. This is an attack on all faith in this country. And this is going to get worse and worse and worse. This was the same day that Donald Trump was in a show trial, a Soviet Union Stalinist show trial that we're dealing with. Democrats are behind all of this. The Democratic Party is the party of chaos. They are the merchants of chaos. They created all this. There's a reason why we weren't going through all this stuff when Donald Trump was in office. The only chaos we were going through when Donald Trump was in office was from the Democrats. Their constant jihad against Donald Trump, the impeachments, the congressional investigations. People need to realize that if you want peace and prosperity in this country, you have to stop voting for the Democratic Party. They have went way off the board, man. They have went way left. They are adopting this anti-Israel, this anti-Semitic movement that's spreading through this country like a cancer. They're listening to the Rashida Tlaibs. They're listening to the radical leftists in the Democratic Party because they fear them. Unfortunately, these radical leftists support terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. And so we have a big problem here. And we just better hope and pray that this doesn't turn out to be, we're going to start seeing little micro terrorist attacks throughout the country, because there's one thing about the Middle Eastern terrorist attacks and these civil wars that go on over there. These people, the Middle Eastern countries, are constantly at war with one another. It's not like the Civil War we're taught in history class. You could be sitting at a McDonald's and there could be a embassy get blown up right down the street, and everybody just walks around like normal. That is what war looks like. That's what civil wars look like in these Middle Eastern countries. It's not like what we think it is in the movies. This, I hope and pray, doesn't come here. And I'm just afraid that we're starting to see this movement creep up months before the election. This is what I'm afraid is going to happen. You have an open southern border that this administration purposely opened, all right? Did it on purpose. Joe Biden wants to pretend, I don't know if I have the power to seal up the border. The judges may not like it. The courts may not like it. BS, man. This guy used a pen to remove all these policies that were securing our southern border. He can use a pen to put them back. He does not need legislation. He does not need any rulings from the court. All he has to do is put Donald Trump's policies back in place. But he will not do that because these people would rather watch this country burn than give Donald Trump a win. That's what we're dealing with. That's Trump derangement syndrome. So that's what I wanted to go through today. There was so much more to get into, but before we leave off, I want to send you off with this little piece of hope. You guys remember in the very first weeks and months of this show, I told you exactly what the plan was. So you guys, if you've been listening to the show for a year now, you know exactly what the plan is. They know all of these cases against Donald Trump are all going to get turned over on appeals. It's not about justice, folks. It's about winning an election. And the reason why this judge won't recuse himself, even though this piece of audio here of a former federal judge says he should, because there is a massive conflict of interest, the reason why is because they know it's not going to mean anything. They only need these cases for the election. After that, they don't care. They're not in search of justice, folks. They're not in search of truth. They're using the justice system as a tool to get Joe Biden elected. But the thing is like, I know nobody wants to see a former president and even a sitting president in prison. What they're doing to Donald Trump is so un-American. It is so Stalinist that it makes me sick to my stomach. Literally, when I get infuriated when I think about the notion that Donald Trump has to sit in jail all because he ran for president. That's what this is about. If Donald Trump stayed at Mar-a-Lago, he did not announce he was running for president again, and he said, listen, I'm going to sit on the sidelines, Ron DeSantis is going to fill in, he'll be a great president. If he just would have did that, he would not be facing all this garbage. He would not be facing prison time. He would not be facing these radical lunatics, these, I guess you can almost call them terrorists at this point, these Democrats. He would not be facing the wrath of the Washington establishment if he just would have stayed at Mar-a-Lago. This is what pisses me off. This man did not have to do this. What they're doing is so un-American. No American, nobody should ever be treated the way that they're treating Donald Trump. Okay? Everybody should have due process. Everybody should have a right to a fair trial. Everybody should have a right to client-attorney privilege. All these things they have stripped away from Donald Trump. This is sick. It's disgusting. And I would not wish this on my worst enemy. I wouldn't even want Democrats to be treated this way. I don't want Joe Biden treated like this. I want Joe Biden to be held accountable, but not like this. What would Democrats think if all these cases were being held, let's just say in Alabama or Louisiana? Do you still think they would be saying, oh, this is fair, this is just justice, this is how the system works, Donald Trump's a normal person, he's going to get the same treatment? No. They would be saying, this is a rigged system, this is Donald Trump's getting special treatment. How do I know this? Because they're doing the same thing with Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida. Okay, the one judge that actually doesn't ramrod Donald Trump, the one judge that doesn't just take everything the federal government gives to her and steamrolls Donald Trump's rights, they're trying to get rid of her. They're trying to destroy her on the media. And so, like, these people don't want fairness. They don't want justice, folks. They want a system that they can use to give them their desired outcomes. That is what they want. And if they get a judge, or if they get a prosecutor, or if they get a president, or if they get anybody that does not give them what they want, what the mob desires, then they must be destroyed. They see them as an enemy. This is what we're dealing with. What they're doing to Donald Trump is so un-American, it's insane. I assure you, all these things are going to get turned over on appeal. All right? Donald Trump said today that he would run from jail if he had to. I really hate the fact. Okay? That is a sight that I don't want to see. That is going to be a very dark day in this country if we have to watch Donald Trump, a former president and current running political opponent to Joe Biden, sitting in jail and having to campaign from jail. All right? For reasons unknown. Democrats cannot explain within detail why we are dealing with all these crimes and why we're dealing with all these indictments. They're trying to cobble together a bunch of laws, whether they're 100-year-old laws, 200-year-old laws, whatever it is. They're using everything in their toolbook. That is called weaponizing a justice system to get a desired outcome for political purposes. This is stuff that should not be happening in this country, and it hasn't happened in this country ever before. It's unprecedented what we're watching right now. But I want to leave you with this. This is a judge, a Clinton-appointed, retired federal judge. She's talking with Caitlin Collins, and I didn't hear a lot of people play this audio, but I found this to be quite interesting. This judge is essentially going over this Merchant case, this Judge Merchant, Trump, Manhattan, Alvin Bragg case. And she's calling out the obvious conflict of interest. This judge refused to recuse himself. And the law, in the handbook, in the rule book, right there, it states on multiple occasions that this judge should have recused himself, and he didn't. This is grounds upon grounds upon grounds for appeal. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but if you have a federal judge that says this judge should have recused himself and essentially, giving out the wink and a nod that this is probably going to get turned over on appeal because of the conflict of interest, then why are we here? If we know that this is going to get turned over on appeal, if this judge knows that there's this massive conflict of interest, if he's violating the statute that he's supposed to be following because he doesn't want to recuse himself, because he wants to be the one that get Trump, then we all know this is going to get turned over on appeal because this is exactly what the appeals court is going to use. So I have some audio of this federal judge that I want to send you off with. I found it to be quite interesting. Again, this is a Clinton judge, Judge Shira, I think her name is. I can't remember her first name, Deborah Shira. This was played on April 5th on the leftist hacks platform, Caitlin Collins. How she has a platform is beyond me. She is probably one of the most Trump-deranged leftist Pravda newscasters that there is on CNN. And she doesn't like it when this judge is essentially calling out Judge Merchant for his massive conflict of interest with his daughter. Here, check this out.
I had the chance to read the motion, and they've put together a composite of issues that would cause me a little bit of pause. And I can explain all the various things that they've put together. The main focus of this motion, as opposed to the previous one a year ago, which the judge denied, is on the daughter's line of work. As you already said, the daughter does work with many, many high-profile Democratic candidates. She works on their social media. They put out a post. They get contributions. She, as an owner, gets a percentage of those contributions. So there is a statute in New York which says a judge must disqualify himself if a person known by the judge to be within the 6th degree of relationship, and a daughter is the 1st degree, has an interest that could be substantially affected by the outcome of the proceeding.
Wait, what? You guys heard that, right? So essentially, this judge knows he's violating the New York statute. He knows this because of his daughter's conflict of interest. His conflict of interest with his daughter working on Democratic campaigns. Hello, getting paid by Democrats, making money off of this case, tweeting out pictures of Donald Trump behind bars. And nobody sees this as a conflict of interest? Well, this federal judge does. And this is pretty much this judge in this Manhattan Alvin Bragg case purposely, knowingly violating New York statute by refusing to recuse himself based off of his conflict of interest with his daughter. So the audio goes on. She's got more to say. Here, check it out.
So the question here is this daughter likely to profit, to benefit from the outcome of this proceeding? And you have to understand, it's not actual conduct that's worrisome. It's the appearance to a reasonable person that this judge cannot be fair and impartial.
That's called justice, Democrats. Just the mere appearance of impartiality. Judges are supposed to recuse themselves because they don't want to give the appearance of being impartial and biased towards a defendant. Like, that is that is real justice. Why? Because everybody must leave that courtroom. When that judge makes his ruling, when that jury makes their ruling, makes their decision, everybody must leave and say, wow, now justice was served, right? Now, one or two are not going to agree with the outcome, probably. But for the most part, It's supposed to be carried out, and people are supposed to, with confidence, say that justice was served. But we have not just one or two people that see the appearance of impropriety, not just one or two people that see the appearance of impartiality, but you have tens of millions of essentially every single Trump voter. So half of the country can see the obvious bias and impartiality. And this judge doesn't recuse himself. That's an issue. That is not justice, folks. That is a judge that is drooling, chomping at the bit in order to get his 15 minutes of fame and to carry out whatever plan that Joe Biden or whatever the plan is here, which I think we all know is to stop Donald Trump from winning the election. He is purposely not recusing himself so that he can carry out the mission. So this judge is calling this out. So it's obvious there is a conflict of interest. It's obvious what is going on. And even Democrats can see this, man. Here's the rest of what this judge says. There's not much here. Check it out.
Given that relationship. So ordinarily, I would think that a benefit financially would be to a spouse because they share the income. This is an independent adult daughter. They don't share income. But according to this statute, the judge must recuse if she would substantially benefit from the outcome. So that's one thing that concerned me. But if you add to that a few other facts that are of concern, at least to me, was the judge's original contribution to President Biden 4 years ago, which he made himself.
What? Folks, think about this. The judge in this case donated to Joe Biden? What? Are we serious? And they expect 70 million, 80 million, and 100 million. They expect the American people to not see the possible bias here with this judge and ruling on Donald Trump and hearing this case about Donald Trump. The guy freaking donated to Joe Biden's campaign. I mean, come on, man. Like, really? Like, Democrats don't ever connect the dot and say, well, this is a Democrat judge that donated to Joe Biden's campaign in a Democrat city, a Democrat district attorney, in a Democrat stronghold where 80, 90% voted for Joe Biden. Like, they don't put any of this together. Like, they don't ask themselves the question, like, well, wait a minute. Donald Trump's being prosecuted by all Democrats, but that's supposed to be justice? We're supposed to sit on the sidelines and be like, yeah, but justice is really being carried out here. I love to see justice work out. No, this is insane. You have a former federal judge calling out Judge Merchant, saying that there's not just a 6th degree of conflict of interest. This is a conflict of interest on a 1st degree. His daughter making money off of this case. And in the statute, it says he must, not maybe, not, possibly, no, he must recuse himself if there is a conflict of interest within or a financial benefit within the 6th degree. This is the 1st degree. So this judge is pretty much saying, this former judge, she's saying this is nuts. That this judge not only should recuse himself, he should recuse himself in shame for even thinking that he would be able to carry out this case and that the people would have confidence that justice was served. This is nuts. And so it's clear and obvious that this judge is on a mission. He has a purpose. He knows his purpose. And his purpose is to kneecap Donald Trump with lawfare to carry out this lawfare mission that's most likely being orchestrated by Barack Obama and Joe Biden from the White House so that he can get a win for Joe Biden. I don't know about you, but that sounds an awful lot like a campaign donation to Joe Biden to me. I don't know. But listen to the rest of what this judge says. I'm not going to interrupt anymore, I promise.
Very small contribution, $35.
Yeah, I think it was $10, right?
Oh, $10.
$35, I'm told, $35. A small contribution, but he made it through ActBlue himself on the internet. He did give an interview where he said he wouldn't comment on the case, but then he said he's been intensely preparing and he wants to be fair and impartial, and justice is important. He and his daughter discussed the former president's use of social media which the judge condemned in that discussion, and the daughter reported on it. The Office of Court Administration.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, folks. I know I promised you that I wouldn't interrupt, but wait. So he was talking with his daughter about the case? His daughter that gets paid by Democrats, that is an activist, a Democrat activist in campaigns, posted a picture of Donald Trump behind bars on her social media. Like, are we serious with this? This is justice? This is not freaking justice, man. This was like justice, maybe like if we're living in Stalin's Soviet Union, this would be justice. This was justice to the useful idiots back in the 1930s. But this is not justice. This doesn't even have the iota. There's not even a slight appearance of justice here. No, this whole thing stinks. And the reason why they're hanging their hat on this one case, all of this, the entire election is riding on this case because this is the only one that's going to see the light of day before the election. And so Democrats are they are knowingly using the justice system to interfere in an election. And we know this because they say that Donald Trump should be held accountable before the election. And so therefore, they're using the justice system to sway an election.
Said the daughter's Twitter account ended a year ago, so any recent posts on that were not from the daughter. Yeah. And I kind of wonder why the Office of Court Administration was defending the daughter. So if you put all these together, is my point, it's certainly enough that maybe a reasonable person could have a doubt about impartiality. So I think it's kind of a serious motion. I realize it's 10 days before the trial and I don't expect it to be granted.
Of course not. Of course not. Why would it be granted? Why would it be granted? Why would they possibly give Donald Trump a leg up? Why would they possibly give Donald Trump his rights, his constitutional rights to a fair trial and due process? Donald Trump does not get due process. Donald Trump does not have rights to these people. Donald Trump is the exception to the Constitution. Everybody gets due process. Everybody gets a fair trial. Everybody gets a jury of their peers. Everybody but Donald Trump. This is called Trump derangement syndrome. And ladies and gentlemen, history will remember these days as the Democratic Party weaponizing the justice system to defeat a political opponent and driving this country down the slope we've been going on for 8 years now. When this place hits rock bottom and this entire thing completely collapses, all the Hezbollah flag wavers, all the Hamas flag wavers that we see in New York City today will be jumping up and down and cheering and celebrating for the collapse of America, for the death of the United States. It's all connected, folks. This is the America Democrats want for you. This is the future of America if Democrats continue to go down this path of insanity and adopt these leftist, progressive, radical, fascist, all the names in the book you can think of. These people are nuts. They are destroying this place. The people in this country need to wake up. If you are a God-fearing American in this country, you need to wake up. And I'm sorry, if you don't like Donald Trump, if you don't like the way he talks, if you don't like the way he looks, I am sorry. But you need to try to love this country more than you hate Donald Trump. That's all I'm going to say, because if these people get power again, if these people retain power for another 4 years, I've said it before, I don't know where the future of this country is. But it's certainly not looking good when you have Democrat and Biden voters waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags around our country, chanting death to America. Because 4 years of this, think about that. So all the damage, death, and destruction we had for the last 4 years, 3.5 years, double it. Where's this country going to be? I don't know. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I would just end out with that. The reason why I played it, it gives me hope. It gives me hope because this judge sees it. She's obviously a sane, rational Democrat. She was a federal judge nominated by Clinton. She's retired now, but she's a Democrat. She's your old school Democrat. RFK Jr., believe it or not, gives me hope that not all Democrats are insane. Like, I would be totally okay if RFK Jr. was running against Donald Trump. I would say, yeah, I totally get why people would want RFK Jr. And I still do. I do understand why people like RFK. I really do. I like the guy. I have nothing against the guy. I don't like his VP pick. But me personally, I'm in this thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump inspires people. Donald Trump is the voice of this country. This guy's willing to sacrifice his smoking hot wife and billionaire life, and he's willing to sacrifice the life he could have had in order to save this country. He's willing to risk going to prison for the rest of his life. He's willing to be risk being assassinated, all for this country. I got mad respect for Donald Trump, and so I'm going to see this out. I voted for Donald Trump. The first time I ever voted for Republican was for Donald Trump. And so I started on this path with Donald Trump, and we're going to end on this path with Donald Trump. And so for me, it's Donald Trump all the way. But I could see how RFK Jr. is very enticing to some people. And this is why Joe Biden and his campaign are going to destroy RFK Jr. This is why they're not giving him Secret Service. What kind of a scumbag, degenerate, old, decrepit fool doesn't give RFK Jr. Secret Service, knowing his family's history with assassinations? His uncle, JFK, was assassinated, and his father was assassinated. And you're going to deny Secret Service for RFK Jr. because you don't want to give him legitimacy? Because he's your political opponent? This is how disgusting Joe Biden is. This is why Joe Biden is nothing that the media made you think he was. He is nothing. He is an awful, rotten man. He really is an evil... I don't call people evil too much, but I really do think Joe Biden is evil. I am not one of these, moderate Republicans that say, oh, Joe Biden's just good old lunch bucket Joe. He's just got bad policies. He's been wrong on a lot of stuff. No. I think Joe Biden is really an evil man. I think he sniffs little kids. I think he's done weird stuff with his daughter. I do believe Tara Reid. I do believe he pinned her up against the wall and forced himself into her. I do believe he raped her. I believe all this stuff. I certainly believe Joe Biden's a racist because I can hear it with my own ears. I know what the guy said about having to have a slight Indian accent to go to a 7-Eleven, or how you ain't black if you don't vote for him. Busing. He was pro-segregation and anti-busing about his kids having to grow up in a jungle. Yeah, we've seen it all, dude. The 1994 crime bill, we've seen it all. I have heard enough of Joe Biden to know who this guy is. And I've always known who Joe Biden is. And I've been trying to warn my fellow Americans for years now. And now everybody gets to see exactly who Joe Biden is. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this show is way longer than any other show we've done. We have had a lot to get into, and there was a lot more I wanted to get into. Too many rants, man. I gotta slow down with the rants and get into more of these stories. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll do another. We'll touch back on this topic. I'm sure this is going to be the next 3 weeks is going to be all Trump Manhattan case. So we're going to be touching down on this topic a lot. There's a lot of other stuff I want to get into, and we'll get back at it tomorrow. Never a dull moment, folks. We got to keep it going. We got to keep it going. We can't stop now. We are on our way. We got 7-8 months, like 27 weeks or 26 weeks. We got to keep moving forward, man. We got to advance, and push and push. We are in an information war. There's no doubt about it. And so this is a battle of our lives. This is the battle for America. And so I'm not going to stop. So I'm going to continue working on all these stories, digging into all this stuff, and informing my fellow Americans, because informed people make the best decisions. And an informed citizenry is vital to a functioning government, to a functioning society. And so that's what this show is for, and that's what we're going to do. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you want to support the show, please download this podcast on whichever platform you are listening to. You can download it on all major platforms. All you have to do is just type in my name, Steven with the V, Tauriello, Tauriello, in your search bar. Find the show, download the show, and most of all, share the show with your friends and family. And also follow the show on Rumble. You can find the podcast, the audio of the podcast on Rumble. And I'm going to be working on video here shortly, like I told you I would. All in a good time, folks. All in good time. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can get a hold of me, StevenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. And as always, once again, thank you for tuning in. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. I'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.